On Halloween night 1969, two girls vanished together from a small town in Michigan. The strange part, despite being last seen together, the girls weren't known to be friends. When both girls couldn't be found the next morning, the town was baffled. So today, we're investigating the disappearance of Patricia Spencer and Pamela Hobley. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Disappearances, man. I was instantly thinking, how can you disappear without a trace? That just seems like such a hard feat, especially nowadays. And then my mind went to like, what would be kind of like a simple, surefire way? And then I went on a tangent in my mind of like, wait, what if you just push someone off the deck on a cruise?
I mean, Amy Lynn Bradley, not that she was pushed over, but
Right.
like we've talked about cases like that.
We've talked about cases like that. I'm just like, how do you really, one, never find that body. And two, unless it's just riddled with cameras along all the edges.
It's crazy to think about.
Sometimes I go on an edge like that. I go,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just trusting strangers not to push you. I don't know. My brain went on this weird tangent because I was like, oh.
Yeah. It's like anytime you go on the New York subway or any subway that isn't in Japan. Japan has like those little gateways that open up so you can't really get to the tracks. But anytime I'm at a subway that doesn't have that guardrail, I'm like, intrusive thought. Someone could just push me down there, dude.
Good point. That's a very good point.
Like, that wouldn't be a good way to disappear, but it is interesting, that you raise an interesting question, even if it is kind of intrusive thought oriented. Like in a modern time here in 2026, how would you, Fredo, or even Christian, our guy in the chair, how would you disappear in a world of surveillance and tracking and smartphones? There's so much surveillance, it almost feels impossible. Yet we're talking about a time period in the late 60s. We've also covered cases, I believe, in the 40s and 50s. Throughout this mid-century era, this is not unfamiliar territory.
No, not at all.
And there's so many cases where people just disappear and there's not much to say. There's not much to talk about. But this case is so interesting because the internet got its hands into it, scrounged up a photo related to this case, potentially, and then started to connect some dots. And it's a little bit of a conspiracy answer here, but it also, I don't know, this case highlights how we're in a time period wrought with the ease of disappearance in a scary way. But I do want to go back to it. Do you have an answer for how you would disappear?
Like, what do you do? Just throw everything away, pull everything out in cash, strip down butt naked, run straight to the woods, never be seen again? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I guess like somewhere like the national park or something like that, because we have problems finding people that want to be found. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
But for how long can you do that for? I don't know. I guess like flee the country.
Right. I guess you go off grid, maybe you run to the Great North Wilderness, you become a Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, build a cabin, douse yourself in a lavender oil to hide your natural scents, and burn off your fingerprints like you're Will Smith in Men in Black.
Yeah, that'd be difficult. Technology, you just can't have it around at all.
Right. One person calls you, game over.
Yeah. Then also you got to make money and stuff. So that's a whole thing. So it'd be difficult. You definitely have to put effort into it.
That's true. And Christian, how about you? Before I air tag you and always know where you are, how are you getting away?
I don't know. I'm kind of with Alfredo. The only thing I can think of is just go off the grid in like the Appalachian wilderness or the Yukon wilderness and just stay mobile, like full nomad, move everywhere or move somewhere else every couple days. But even then, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard.
I feel like it just involves a lot of walking in modern time. You rent a car to increase the distance from which, somebody can track you. They can still because it's rented under your name, but you rent a car, you drive somewhere, and then you hoof it in a different direction for a long time. And then there's eyewitness. I don't know. It's almost an impossible question. Task Force.
Eyewitness cameras, like
dash cams.
It's just hard. You really got to be in the middle of like nowhere, right? Small towns where there really isn't stuff there. But even then, like they'll have a bank. The bank will have a camera.
Absolutely. You can't go through any neighborhoods.
No.
You
Yeah,
know?
all the Ring doorbells and everything like that. Granted, it'd be hard to track and find that and be like, there it is. But if something gives way of like, they're in this town, then if they really wanted to, then all the Ring cameras are going to screw you over. You just need the one to locate the general vicinity that you're in.
Dude, Big Brother is real. They just like put all that data through one lens and they'll recognize you right away. All right. We're off the rails, but I mean, it comes up every time we talk about disappearances. And so I kind of wanted to indulge that conversation a little bit because it really does highlight the incredible difference between where we are now as a society and with technology and everything, and not even 60 years previous. In living memory was a completely different time. And I think that this juxtaposes this case so well. So I just kind of wanted to dig into your thoughts on that. Now, as we dive in, before we go right into the case, a few housekeeping notes. We have a lot going on at Red Web. We are always cooking down here on Sublevel 43. And this Wednesday, if you're inclined, Task Force, we put out a research outline, the very ones that I've looked at to kind of go through the episodes. They're kind of a pseudo fact sheet mixed with just timelines, mixed with a little bit of scripting. Everything I look at before we dive into these episodes. So if you want to take a look behind the scenes at what those have looked like over the years, we post those once a month. One is coming out this Wednesday at redwebpod.com. In addition to that, on Friday, we have our recording of Break Room. I believe Fredo is going to talk to us about his Australia trip. Honestly, we haven't done this break room yet, so I'm guessing. I'm also going to keep you on board, Fredo. I want to know what reverse burgling was in Arc Raiders.
That's something. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was great.
So, if you missed it live last month, tune in this Friday. Again, redwebpod.com. Support us. More than weekly content at this point, and it's the best way to support this show. And you get it ad-free. All right, let's dive in. As always, sensitive topics available in the description because we are talking about minors in this case, as well as a few other themes. So like I said in the very, very beginning, this begins on October 31st, 1969. We have two teenage girls who went missing in the town of Oscoda in Michigan. Now, just to give you a visual, normally I'd slop a map down, but if you make the OK sign with your hand, like a little pinch of the forefinger or the thumb, and you open it a little bit, that's kind of like what Michigan looks like. It's like an oven mitt version of that. And we're kind of like up here on the index finger on the east side of the state. I love Michigan. I always go up to the tip of the mitt is what one of my favorite spots is. My dad and I would go snowmobiling up there. So I've always pictured it just boom as a oven glove mitt. Now, these two teenage girls were Pamela Hobley, aka Pam, and Patricia Spencer, aka Patty. Now, they both had plans to attend the same homecoming football game that night, and then they also had a Halloween party scheduled that evening. Now, before we go any further, I want to give you some faces to think about as we go through this case. On the left, you can see Pamela Hobley, and on the right, you have Patricia Spencer.
Oh, I got those wide eyes going on.
Very wide eyes, yeah.
Pamela, a bit of an emo kid. You got the jet black hair with maroon tips just on some of the parts of her.
There's maroon in there?
It looks, yeah, what does that look like to you?
All one color. My colorblind is showing.
It is very much showing, yeah.
I couldn't tell you that there was red in there. Okay, well, yeah, dark brown hair with...
Yeah, you got like a deep red in there. Just on the bottom, just a little bit.
Okay.
And then the other girl, she looks like she goes to church on Sundays.
Okay, I can see that with the high collar.
High collar with the little ruffles on it. Like a, what was that? Like a dirty blonde type of like hair color?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
And very late 60s into the 70s hairstyles, absolutely.
Very much so.
Yeah. So these are unfortunately, the two teenage girls who went missing. And despite these shared plans, right, I think a lot of people attend the homecoming football game. But what's really interesting is that they were both going to this Halloween party. And so this does seem to indicate that maybe they knew one another. But really, as far as we can tell, all reports, all student, teacher, parents, everything kind of accounts seem to indicate that they were no more than acquaintances. You know, like you've seen people across the room when you went to high school, you know their name, but you don't really hang out with them.
Yeah, if you were to be like super surface level, they don't look like they would hang out in the same circles.
Oh, like different cliques?
Yeah. One seems like they're a little bit more, I don't know. One seems more like kind of like an emo, maybe like a little bit of a scene kid, like ahead of their time type thing. You know, maybe like, like to dye their hair and wear black and everything like that. And if you're just going with like, I mean, honestly, even, stereotypes, but of like high school dynamics, but also just from experience, it's like you usually hung out with the people that have similar interests as you. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that tends to also be like similar looks, like
similar looks, style, attitude, yeah, all of that. So speaking of that, Spencer was a 16-year-old girl, and she was described as a vibrant and kind girl. She was known for her warm and welcoming demeanor, as well as her close relationship with her family. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is really the most detail we have on Spencer, because unlike Hobley's siblings, Spencer's family was a little bit more private about what happened after this event and not really divulging so many of the details. So that's essentially as much as we kind of know of her as a personality. Now, Hobley, we have a little bit more information on, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit, but Hobley was 15 years old and the eldest of 4 sisters. In 1968, her parents were divorced, and Hobley took that pretty hard. And in response to this, she began partying. She was skipping classes. Sometimes she would skip full days at school. And surprisingly, she was recently engaged to her then boyfriend named Jim. We don't know Jim's surname or anything like that, or his age. We don't really know much more than Jim. But yeah, at the age of 15, she is now engaged.
Okay, so there's a fiance in play here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So immediately, not necessarily meaning they're going to be a suspect, but they'll be looked at.
They'll be looked at. You definitely have to think about this stuff. And it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. I'm kind of stereotyping here a little bit based on cases we've covered, but it wouldn't be strange to think about if we have a huge age difference here, or even just a subtle age difference. We're young enough that 4 years is a mountain of an age gap.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know much more about Jim, but it is something to think about, absolutely, and how that shifts the dynamic of this disappearance. But since her engagement, she claimed she wanted to slow down on the partying, settle down a little bit, and settle down with her fiance, which is a pretty mature attitude for any 15-year-old I would have known.
But also, like, damn, how much partying were you doing? Like, I didn't have my first sip of alcohol until 25. Granted, that's like way later than most people, but I'm like, dang, 15. You're like, I'm gonna slow down a bit. I'm like, whoa,
I gotta slow down.
Jeez, hey.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe just a casual amount of partying, and Jim was maybe he was just really straight-laced. We don't know this guy. Okay, so on the night of the disappearance, again, it's Halloween, Jim was set to meet Hobley at the Halloween party that night. Her mother also knew her whereabouts that evening because Hobley asked for her permission to attend the night's festivities, and her mother even said yes. So it's not like we're really dealing with a problem child. It's not, yeah, they skip some classes, they do some partying, but it seems otherwise all above deck, and that they have the wherewithal to even say like, maybe I need to slow down a little bit. So according to reports, Hobley had full intentions of attending the full school day and would then go home to get ready for the party that evening. However, it's reported that on that day, Escoda High School had some sort of fire drill or bomb drill, something like that, where everyone would have to gather and move outside at around 2 p.m. It's unclear, depending on the sources, which of those 2 drills it might have been. If you're an American student, these are all actually pretty common. Now, this required, of course, an evacuation of the students from the school to practice what you would actually do in the event of a fire or a bomb threat or anything like that. And this is where some reports state that witnesses saw Spencer and Hobley leaving school together, walking down the road away from the school. To add some more color to this, limited sources report that Spencer and Hobley were actually seen together in one of the school's bathrooms where they were openly crafting their plans to leave school early that day. This particular source, I imagine being a student, claims that there was actually a third classmate who came forward after the fact stating that she was also supposed to skip school with these 2 girls, but kind of backed out after getting skittish, maybe fearing that she would get caught or what have you. Which adds some credence that, okay, this is a known fact if we're trying to paint a vivid outline or timeline here. School, 2 p.m. fire drill, they go outside. After that, that's kind of the last we know of them.
Really? And I'm just so curious. I'm just very curious. There's just so many. Why? I mean, not that they can't hang out with each other or talk with each other, but like, if you're going to ditch class, it's usually going to be with someone you know.
Right.
Because you're going to want to, like, everyone else is in school. You can't really go home and do nothing. Like, you kind of have to just loiter around places. And so you're going to want to do that with someone that you're friends with. So to do that with someone super random, yeah, I don't know. I mean, one could be pressured into it.
Sure.
Like, I could have seen myself during a time someone like I was acquaintances with was like, oh, let's skip and let's go do this. I'm like, oh, I guess sure, why not? Whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this person and they're charismatic and you go, well, they've gotten away with it. They seem to be doing okay. You know what? It's a Friday. Let's get out of here.
Right. But also, you're talking about that's when they were last seen around like what, 2 p.m. leaving?
Around 2 p.m. That is our last vivid,
right?
Several eyewitness accounts. Yeah.
I mean, it is a Friday, but also like, who's abducting people at 2 p.m. on a Friday?
Anyone looking for an opportunity attack, right? That's what my gut says.
That's true. It could just be like in the moment, spur of the moment type thing.
Yeah.
But I guess like my mind goes, okay, less calculated, more spur of the moment as I'm like processing everything.
It's very interesting, you know, and again, with a case like this where there's a little bit of a limited or even conflicting information, I think everyone latches on to the things that stand out. And when they are described as acquaintances, but they're last seen leaving together, it definitely raises intrigue, but otherwise we can only speculate. Right.
Yeah. There's nothing but speculation there. I will say like, yeah, this does make me lean towards more like a spur of the moment abduction, if anything, because then how do you plan? You don't really plan on like, these kids are going to ditch school at 2 p.m. on this Friday.
Unless you're Jim and you're a bad guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you're in on it.
It's usually just like, okay, they get off at this time or they have this thing and they've, you know, followed them or whatever. Not just a like, something tells me they're leaving today early.
Yeah. So that evening continues on. The football game happens. Hobley's mother and younger sisters all go out trick-or-treating and they return home. Everything seems fine. I mean, you and I know different. But then not only did her mother notice when she got home that Hobley wasn't there. She wasn't there getting ready, but it also appeared that she hadn't come home from school at all. Like her bag wasn't there, her books, whatever it is that kind of the telltale signs of her being home at all. It's just, okay, so now her mother goes, great. Okay, this evening seemed normal, but now it seems clear that she is, despite telling me about the party and clearing her plans with me, is clearly not following these plans. Something is amiss. And her mom begins to grow a little bit anxious throughout the night. And so she calls around to her daughter's friends to see if any of them had seen her, to check in, say, hey, when was the last time you saw her? Is she there? What's going on? And some reports even state that she began calling fellow parents, as this was how she then learned that Spencer was also missing that evening. No one had any idea where she or Spencer were, including the fiance Jim, who said she had not been at the party that evening and he hadn't even seen her. Once again, there's a few minor differences across the various articles, but some reports state that it was Jim who made the first call to Hobley's mother after she failed to show up at the party. Either way, it becomes clear to the people close in her life that she's missing and something isn't quite right. It's through this very proactive outreach that the mother did to the students, parents, that she learned that neither Hobley nor Spencer had been seen since earlier that day at school. In fact, the last thing she could track down was the two of them leaving school together, walking down the road at around 2 p.m. And then in the early hours of the morning, November 1st, 1969, Lois Hobley called the police and officially reported her daughter as missing.
That's so rough. We talked about this a handful, but to just have to wait, you know, especially if you call, I don't know, maybe 6-8 hours in some obscure time that's not like what, 48 hours. Just be like, okay, just wait, see if they show up. It's just got to be nerve-wracking to just keep waiting hours, minutes.
Time dilates too. You just sit there with the unknown. painting pictures of what could be that are all terrifying.
It really does, because you're just sitting there. What could be? Like, does every minute count? Every second count here? Are they in pain? Like, that's hard. How do you sleep? How do you do anything? How do you function? Their child.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Select Quote. Have you ever heard of the Slayer Rules? These are legal provisions that prevent people from inheriting property or benefiting from the estate of a person that they murdered. One of the things they protect is someone getting killed for their insurance policy. It makes you realize how valuable life insurance is, doesn't it? That's where Select Quote comes in. For over 40 years, Select Quote has helped more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. Over $700 billion in coverage. As a broker, their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy for your unique needs. I really enjoy Select Quote because it's kind of a one-stop shop, not just for life insurance, but all insurance needs. For me, it was house or car insurance. I didn't really know where to start when I was first looking out, and so going here was an easy way to get a few different options, see different coverages with the price alongside them, so you can really get a good comparison of different insurance options. Unlike other one-size-fits-all life insurance companies, Select Quote's licensed agents will work for you. In as little as 15 minutes, they'll compare policies from top-rated carriers to find you the best fit for your health and your budget, and they work for you for free. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Select Quote, they shop, you save. So Task Force, get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at selectquote.com/redweb. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at selectquote.com/redweb today to get started. That's selectquote.com/redweb. So now the police are aware and an investigation is immediately kicked off. But despite the protests of both the girls' families, initially the police labeled both of these girls as runaways, which is interesting because neither one of these girls brought any clothing, supplies, any identification with them, which to many would largely disprove the theory that they ran away. It seemed that there was no reason, no motive. They were both very close with their families. They didn't show any obvious signs of wanting to flee their families. And even if they did, again, it's not like they're bringing anything to protect themselves. They're heading into the middle fall time in Michigan where it's going to get cold. It is going to get snowy. So like it just felt strange to the families to say, well, why are we calling these runaways? We got to be looking for these girls.
Yeah, it'd be pretty upsetting. Like, what have they packed? Like, tell me... Make this make sense to me.
Right.
What made you come to this conclusion?
Yeah.
What am I not seeing here? I would want a full-blown explanation for sure.
Yeah. Rather than, kids do the darndest things.
Yeah, kids do the darndest things.
I'm like, yeah, this is pretty darned. I should say, across the many cases we've looked at, across the many other cases we have researched and not done episodes about because of the brevity, it is a very big theme at this point in time for police to kind of err on the side of runaways, or they'll show up eventually. For whatever reason, that's kind of just one of the first lines of thinking for cases like this. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, and we know now, especially in a case where it is still cold, that that's not maybe the best first move. You know, to play devil's advocate, maybe it's a conservation of resources. Maybe it's because you don't have the team necessary to chase down every possible my kid's missing for a few hours. I don't know how prolific that idea is or how often kids ran away, but suffice to say, in a case like this, with hindsight, it's a frustrating first response or first reaction. With that said, though, at some point, it's unclear exactly when, some point shortly after this initial thinking, probably due to the protests and illogic presented from the parents, like, hey, I don't think they ran away. We need to look at this. The police did, to their credit, began to treat this as a disappearance or a missing persons case rather than runaways. So I do appreciate the pivot because sometimes they're staunch. They're just like, nah, they'll show up.
Sometimes they're like, no, we're gonna lock into this theory.
Yeah. So they're treating it like a missing persons case, but unfortunately, nothing really comes of that. There's not a lot of clues to go off of. There's not a lot of evidence to really look at. The last eyewitness accounts are saying 2 p.m., but I want you to kind of hold on to this because in this present moment, we have somebody in the far future who will make a claim that said that they knew more about the case during this time. So otherwise, in the modern time, in the 1969 era, we don't have anything else to go off of. And so the case goes frustratingly and deeply cold for quite some time. It wouldn't be for another 16 years, in 1985, that police then received a tip that the girls were killed by two men local to this area. This anonymous tip then says that these girls, after being killed, were taken to a barn belonging to a man with the specific name of Jack Searle and buried there. Now, it's unclear if this tip was truly anonymous, but there is no name publicly associated with this claim, and so therefore I have to imagine that it was anonymous, or at least, hey, keep me anonymous from the publications kind of thing.
Right.
There's no other names attached to it. This person's just saying two men killed these girls, buried them at a very specific person's barn. And on top of that, Searle's barn was a popular location for many teens to party in the year 1969. Reports state that Searle was never suspected at any point to have involvement in the case, but because of this, it was reported at least that police searched the property with cadaver dogs to sniff around, and they also used things like backhoes to kind of dig in certain areas to investigate, but ultimately nothing was ever found. And the details of this fact, I should say, are murky, as some claim that cadaver dog search happened in 1985 when the report was made, but others claim that this search of this barn didn't happen for another like 25 years almost, or maybe 26 years, I guess, math. 2011. So things get very, very confusing, suffice to say.
Yeah, the information, the timelines kind of jump around.
It is. So tip comes in 1985. Some reports state that the search of the barn happened immediately in that year. Some claim that it didn't happen until 2011, after a new detective took over the case. We'll have more on this part later, but with this new eye on the case, he goes, Jack Searle, we've never looked at this man. Let's go look at it, right? So immediately we're seeing a wobbly foundation. It's very common in these cases to see conflicting information. But either way, regardless, at some point in time, this barn was searched and nothing was found. I think that is the takeaway, regardless of when it was. So let me just really quickly recap, because it started to immediately get a bit hairy. I'm going to take you back to 1969. Suffice to say, in this year, the case goes immediately and frustratingly cold. Potentially due to the delay in police action in treating this like a missing persons case, we don't know. Probably also due to the lack of evidence or any other eyewitness reports. 16 years go by and we get an unproductive tip that reawakens the case before it once again goes cold. And now, we're going to make another time jump. The year is 2013. A man comes forward with new information.
What?
44 years after the disappearances. Now, this new person comes forward and claims that, hey, I was driving down the road that day. I'm the one that picked them up as they were walking down River Road, and I took them all the way down to downtown Escoda to the gas station where River Road meets Interstate 23. That's right there in downtown Escoda. You can go there to this present day. There's a Dairy Queen if you wanted an ice cream cone, but that's where this man says he dropped them off. And it does make sense because River Road runs east-west from the school directly to Escoda. So assuming that this is where they were headed when they left the school, it would take about an hour, maybe 50 minutes to walk the 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers from the school east to downtown Escoda, which makes this claim of a Good Samaritan giving the girls a ride relatively believable. So this claim is interesting. Why is it coming so late?
Yeah.
Why does it have no other information? We don't know this person. But the man who came forward with this insight, interestingly, claims that he gave this very same information to police at the time of the original investigation. If that's the case, it's unclear why he didn't follow up on this lead in the immediate aftermath. Why would you let the case go cold for 44 years?
Right.
Why would you wait all this time? But also, if you did report this information all the way back in 1969, why would police reports indicate the last sighting of the two girls was them leaving school and not you, the Good Samaritan, giving them a lift down the road 2.5 miles?
Yeah, where does the disconnect happen here?
Great question.
Because this is major disconnect. Also, they say that the patience is dead and people aren't patient. This person waited how long? Why?
He sits back. He goes, hold on, let him cook. We don't know. Sir, it's been 44 years. You have to say something.
That information is valuable immediately.
Immediately.
I can't imagine just sitting, waiting. I don't know, sitting with that information for 44 years. I always wondered, like, one, why not come forward? Maybe they were scared or whatever. You know, they don't want to get involved. Like, once you're, and then the scope of like law enforcement and everything, like, even if you've done nothing, it can be a little anxiety inducing. But then also, what makes you want to say something 44 years later?
Yeah, that's a good point. Deathbed confession?
Is it just like it's eaten up inside for that long? Like, at that point, it's like, why even say anything?
These are all great questions. And on top of that, you know, I can't help but bubble up this idea that, was there negligence on the police's end at the time? Like, they're just runaways, don't worry about it. Well, if this person is let's take it at face value for a second. If they said something to police at the time, it's wild that we haven't heard this. It's wild that they didn't pursue this, at least we don't know this publicly, or this guy's just lying, right? That's also perfectly possible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could just be lying.
But why, after 44 years, come through and be like, I drove them when I was a young man? Now, what's interesting is we don't know who this person is. I asked Kat, I was like, hey, is there any way, Kat Cardenas is our researcher task force, I said, is there any way we can find this person's name? Do a little extra digging. And she's like, I couldn't find anything else, not even a name. But all that is to say, the reason why I asked this is because the only thing we could find is that police cleared this person as a suspect. And I'm like, honestly, we don't have a lot of suspects. This would be one to me, but I guess he's clear. So I don't know if that adds veracity to the story, if this means the police quietly investigated this lead and found it wanting, and so they didn't ever talk about it. I don't know, right? It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. We don't know, like, the information and the details of the investigation, but it's hard to, like, give them the benefit of the doubt when so much of this is, like, disjointed, the ball's been dropped, etc. And it's just like, dang.
And I don't want to sit here and again, use my hindsight to be like, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and criticize people. But this does feel like a very interesting disconnect, because if anything else, it's a very interesting, fruitful piece of extra knowledge. It gives us a better vector rather than just them walking down the road. It gives us an idea of, okay, now we know center of town. Are there eyewitnesses there? Were they seen in any businesses? You know, and I would just trust that the police would have looked those up and chased him down. But I digress. Now, like I said, in modern times, there was a new chief of police, and that was Escoda Township Police Chief Mark David, who took over this case in 2010 and has continued to investigate to find potential answers for the families. I gotta love it. Even though it is a 41-year-old case by this point, it doesn't ever sleep, and it must be an exhausting job to look at all of these cold cases in any given township, but I appreciate that effort being done. So now in modern times, they're looking at DNA. They're looking at dental records. These were all obtained for both Hobley and Spencer to try to match them with any other recorded unidentified deaths. No matter if they were in the area or abroad, they're like, well, let's put these in a database. And so any Jane Doe that comes through the hospital, let's at least run them against what we do have from these girls and see if we can, like, connect some dots.
You gotta think, though, the worst has happened and they're no longer with us. 44 years.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a foregone conclusion.
Damn. You're just looking for closure at that point.
Possibly. Now, what's interesting is that some reports state that Spencer's dental records were unavailable, and they were only able to use Hobley's dental records in order to do these searches. But again, sources vary on the matter. In 2013, the police announced that they had a person of interest in the case, but they needed further information in order to proceed with this person. Now, once again, we did some searching. There's no information about this particular lead, so it seems like this is something they said and maybe pursued this lead, and otherwise it went cold. Maybe it was just non-productive. But that, in modern times, is where the case lies. It is cold, but I believe still open. Obviously, local police are still looking for information. We'll talk about that at the end of the case. Before, I think we should talk about some of the theories, because there's two obvious ones here, and then there's one that comes from some internet sleuths who, with their enormous hive mind took a look at this case, which happens to maybe be connected to another case. And if it is the case, then maybe we have some insights here.
See, that's always, I always find that intriguing. We're just like, oh, this is connected to another case. Oh, oh my goodness, how? And like, what tethers them to each other? Is it the person that was the victim, the perpetrator? Like, what is going on? Like, I don't know, how do you latch on to something else?
Right. It is a very interesting one. It relies very strongly on one piece of, I do air quotes, evidence. I'm very eager to talk about it and get your thoughts on it. Task Force, get your thoughts on it. But until we get there, let's talk about some of the preeminent theories of the time. Of course, starting with the idea of these two girls being runaways. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning, it's one of the least popular theories because the families, the friends, anybody who knew about this case didn't really subscribe to the idea of them being runaways. But of course, since this is what the police originally suspected, I think it's worth moving through this lens and seeing what maybe sticks, what feels right. So interestingly, in the wake of these disappearances, rumors were swirling that the girls had run away to Flint, Michigan. I'm sure you've heard of Flint, Michigan in the news over recent years over their water crisis and everything, but to give you a more concrete idea of where that is, Flint is 130 miles or 209 kilometer drive south, or if you prefer, about a 2 hour and 15 minute drive. So it's not out of Michigan. It's, I don't know, you're kind of deeply in the throes of Michigan either way. So it's unclear why these rumors started, where they started, or why the girls would go to Flint specifically. So it is worth saying that, these are kind of unsubstantiated rumors. But beyond the lack of evidence or any insight on these rumors, other factors also discredit this theory, like the fact that both girls were content at home, were not known to be friends themselves with a tight relationship, which kind of makes it odd for the idea that they would run away together. But this is something that I'm making a lot of assumptions here, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. And I didn't see this in a lot of other forum discussions or articles or anything, but given the time period, I'm just kind of theorizing within this idea. Like, a lot of people say they weren't known to be friends. Why would they leave together? Part of me wants to wonder, what if these two girls were in a relationship?
Oh,
yeah. It wouldn't be outside expectation for the late 60s for this relationship to be very quiet and to be kept on the down low, which leaves everyone going, oh, they're just acquaintances. They don't know each other.
That is a good point. It could have been that way.
There's some key events in the LGBTQ plus community that happened in June of that year, for example, that might have emboldened people of that community to protest or, essentially like speak to LGBTQ plus rights. Now, again, I'm kind of making a lot of assumptions here. I'm just saying that there is definitely an interesting point here in time, culturally and societally, that I can understand why the relationship part might be quiet, why they might want to run away together, why this might be the time to do it. But again, I am completely speculating because other than societal clues, there's no other evidence to go off of. But I couldn't help but think about that the more people kept saying, well, they didn't really know each other. Why would they leave together? And I'm like, well, maybe they had a secret friendship. You know what I mean?
And I guess it's like, what? It was just unfortunate that they happened to run into someone.
Well, that's another theory. I mean, within this runaways idea, like maybe they did actually just want to disappear together. Again, I'm way down the line of speculation. This isn't based on anything, Task Force. But if they wanted to live together,
to never show up again, though.
Right. That's a valid counterpoint. 100%.
Then also it's like, why even show up again? Aside from like people, I mean, it's like, I don't know, you can make a million reasons. Like, we did our thing, we don't have to deal with like the police or saying what happened or the whole rigmarole. I don't know, like to not pop up again is such a big decision.
It is a big decision. And maybe it just gets harder as time goes on. In the first 10 years, you're still young. You don't want to expose yourself. Society's not ready for that answer. And so then you go on 40 years and you go, well, we've made it this far. Our parents maybe have passed. Why say, hey, we're alive now? Maybe you just keep going. Again, deep in speculation territory, but it's a good counterpoint. Why if these things are true, why, if they're alive to this day, they wouldn't come forward. I think you're totally right. And again, I didn't see a lot of discussion on that matter, but I do think that at least a part of that could fit within society as it was in the late 60s and 70s. Now, this is where we turn to the more sinister, the idea that they were hitchhiking and that they might not have survived that night, because that does seem to be the strongest direction, especially with this anonymous tip. Both of these tips, actually, one saying, I picked them up, and the other saying they were killed by 2 men. So this is the more widely believed theory, is that the tip to the police was correct, that Hobley and Spencer were picked up either while hitchhiking or walking alongside the road or what have you, and unfortunately murdered soon thereafter.
Yeah.
If this is true, it's unclear where exactly the girls were going at this time, so it's hard to say where they were hitchhiking to or why they needed to do this. You know, we were really racking our brains like, do we have any insight on which direction, east or west, the girls walked away from school? Do we know where that party was supposed to happen that night? If it was a barn, was it Searle's barn or a different barn? Do we know any of the logistics as far as like where either of their families lived? Like, obviously that's all information that exists somewhere in the ephemeral realm of reality, but not as far as we can research it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not enough there.
Yeah.
There just isn't. And everything that keeps popping up is just not substantial.
Right. I imagine, for the sake of privacy and not doxing the family and everybody else, that the police had these informations, and so they could try to kind of path out, okay, were they headed towards the party direction? Were they headed towards one of their family homes? Were they heading towards a Skoda for any particular reason? Maybe to kick it at a gas station, get an ice cream cone while they waited for school to end? All of these things are possible. We just don't know.
We have no idea. I mean, you just have nothing from when they left the school. That's the starting point. We don't have any traces of a general direction or anything, right? So we can't even just start walking in any direction because we have no idea. They left the school. They were seen together leaving the school. It's such a baseline start that you have no compass.
Right. That makes a search very difficult. We've talked about that. You know, you've mentioned the 48 hours thing, which is the waiting 48 hours thing is a fiction built by television and movies and what have you. The clues get a little bit perturbed over that time period. The longer you wait to report a missing person, the more clues can be lost, the more witness accounts can be muddied, the more vectors, directions they can go. They can get on a train, a plane, a car, a boat. Anything can change in time, right? So the fact that we barely have a direction, I think the strongest we have is they were headed towards a Skoda, which would be east. That's as best we've got. Now, like I was saying at the top, this falls in line with a lot of other disappearance cases from this time period. You know, hitchhiking was extremely common among young people during this time, which makes this theory probable, or at least likely, very, very possible, because there was a very trusting environment. You know, you pop into a neighbor's car, you go down the road, you pop on out. Who's to say that any one of these individuals could be a nefarious one, that they might have ulterior motives? When you've done it countless times in your youth and you build up a trust, I don't know. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Quince. Luxury bedding is one of those things you don't fully appreciate until you sleep on it. That's the experience with Quince. Task Force, my entire bed is built out of Quince at this point. I've got a Quince pillow, I've got Quince sheets, I've got a Quince duvet cover, and it is luxurious, let me tell you that. So if you're looking to upgrade your bed, Quince is the way to do it. The softness, the weight, the quality of the materials, it's kind of a difference that you feel immediately and then notice more with every night. Quince has European linen that gets softer with every wash, organic cotton sheets that feel luxurious, breathable bamboo that stays cool all night, plus premium quilts, comforters, and duvet inserts. Everything you need to build a bed that actually feels finished and feels amazing. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Turn up the luxury when you turn in with Quince. Go to quince.com/redweb for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/redweb. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes it can feel like everyone has it all together in their love lives. The truth is, most people are still figuring it out and finding their way. And no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. BetterHelp does the initial matchmaking work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 6 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. Therapy is an incredibly important tool, and I really appreciate the power that it holds. If you're looking for a good first step to begin your therapy journey, I do recommend BetterHelp because it is a great tool. Finding the right person, figuring out who connects with you and how you communicate and your needs is very important, and that's why I appreciate BetterHelp, because they enable you to do that. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. Now, the barn tip, the one where the girls were said to have been, buried around this barn, it was known to be a party destination. That said, again, we don't know if that was the barn for the Halloween party that night or not. And it did seem that the police, whether it was in 85 or 2011, at least searched the premises there and didn't find any remains. So, with foul play suspected in their deaths, this theory is generally considered to be the truest representation of their fate, although quite vague, right? It's kind of just like, it's in this category and that's about all we have.
Yeah, that's like nothing to go off of at all.
But this is where the internet got its claws into it, and man, this is where we got our start with internet mysteries, the idea that the internet hive mind with access to all this information and to be able to process it and chat it out, like the information accessible on the internet felt like the next realm for analyzing mysteries. And so it's where I really do appreciate the conversations that happen online, especially, the pragmatic ones that aren't alarmist, that aren't just like throwing theories that are baseless. They're analyzing. And so this is where some internet sleuths have discovered that it's possible that the girls were murdered not just generically by a hitchhiker, but specifically a man named Rodney Alcala. Now, Alcala was a serial killer most famous for the murders of 5 women between the years of 1977 and 1979. If you don't know this individual, it's a serial killer that I believe in 78, in the midst of these killing sprees, he went on a dating show, publicly on TV and everything. And there's an article about the woman who he went on a date with from that TV show that's called like Surviving This Guy that I went on this TV show with. And it's very, very interesting.
What?
And yeah, I mean, I felt like we could do a whole episode just on this person.
Yeah.
From a true crime lens. But yeah, suffice to say, he killed 5 women infamously in California from 77 to 79, appearing on TV in the midst of this spree. He's also done some other crimes and killings. I believe 2 were in New York, and there's a couple other things that have happened in other places. But all that is to kind of crash course insight on who this person is. And although he lived in California, where most of these murders took place, like I said, some reports state that he made his way to the Northeast, possibly in the late 60s and early 70s, which would put him kind of in a stone's throw of Northeast Michigan, but kinda.
Yeah. Not necessarily like right there, though.
Yeah, right. Like New York, Michigan, up in the peninsula area. Yeah, I don't know. But not outlandish, all that is to say. Now, Alcala had compiled, interestingly, over 1,000 photos of women, teenage girls, boys. Not all of them, but many of them were explicit in nature. It's believed that most, if not all, of the photos include people that were victimized by Alcala in some way.
Jesus.
Right? Murder victims or what have you. These photos have been released to the general public and have linked Alcala to several other crimes. Now, one of these photos, to kind of bring it back to this case, shows a woman in a white fur coat with long brown hair. Many find this particular photo interesting as Hobley was last seen wearing a white fur coat. Now, this is where I want to show you a side-by-side comparison. Open up our images B here, Fredo, and you can see Hobley on the left and one of the photos from this collection of 1,000 photos from Alcala on the right.
Oh, wow.
Now, many people on the internet suspect, they theorize that this person on the right might be an older Pamela Hobley. There are a few things that fit, like the nose, eye shape, mouth shape, all kind of seem like surprisingly similar.
Yeah, that's stark similar.
But it's really hard to just go off. I should say, it's really hard to just go off 2 photos.
It is. Yeah, we need more.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, initially, like, if you're like, oh, yeah, this is me younger, this is me older, be like, yep.
Right. It is super believable.
Very believable.
That's wild that the internet, looking through these 1,000 photos that this guy had.
Dang, like that they found that.
Yes, exactly. Additionally, one of Alcala's tricks to find victims, I say tricks morbidly here, was picking them up as hitchhikers and then offering them rides. I won't go into the details because this man was sadistic, okay? Essentially toying, that's as much as I'll say it, toying with his known victims. But he would essentially lure them in with the promise of a photo shoot, after which, building this trust, this closeness, he would then attack. Now, it's unclear if police have officially looked into this theory or if Alcala was in Michigan specifically at the time of this disappearance, but many find it hard to reject the similarities of these 2 photos and think that maybe there was a crime of opportunity here, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But again, it all does kind of hinge on this idea that these photos depict the same person. I can see it. It's so hard to say.
We still need more. I know it just sucks to say that, but we do.
Right.
To make such definitive statements.
This is a really interesting theory. I agree. I think it needs more, which is why it is still a cold case. But it really does show the difference, like I was indicating at the top, the difference in time periods, even though it wasn't all that long ago. We have so many cases that, people just disappeared into thin air otherwise. I mean, without this theory, without some of these tips that came through over the years, if this was just left, if you looked at what happened in 1969, 2 girls disappeared, the police thought they were runaways, and then looked at it as missing persons, that's basically it. That's it.
That's it. But nothing else really came of that.
Yeah, and there's so many cases, unfortunately, that are just like that don't even have this deeper thought of runaways or hitchhiking or maybe part of this serial killer's victim crime spree. But it just goes to show how wildly different the times are. And I gotta be honest, I'm not keen on a surveillance state, but at the same time, when I think about all the cases of missing people who have disappeared or have become victims or haven't been able to be found, no closure offered to families, I can see part of the value in it, but also I don't know, man, you can't go anywhere without someone being able to tell exactly where you are or where you were.
It's the pros and the cons of it, man. It really is.
Big cons. Ultimately, right, cutting to modern day, the bodies of Spencer and Hobley have never been found, and their fate remains quite unknown. Pamela's sister, Mary Buell, has been extremely vocal about their disappearances and continues to seek justice for her sister. Gotta love it. I love that. Today, Pamela Hobley would be 71 years old, and Patricia Spencer would be 73. When she went missing, Hobley was 5'7" and 110 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. She had 2 scars, one on the left side of her mouth and one across the bridge of her nose. Spencer, on the other hand, was 5'4" and 125 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Police have been able to age up the photos of the girls to approximate what they might have looked like today, or what they could look like.
I love that.
So take a look at image C here. It shows, once again, the 2 girls in their youth, and then the 2 girls rendered as to what they could look like in more modern times for anybody out there who might have seen people like this.
I think the unfortunate thing happened. I think they came across somebody, they saw an opportunity, and they did a terrible thing. And they were just never able to find them again. Yeah. It's also pretty wild that we just don't find the bodies just decades later, with all the growth of civilization, digging up everything and putting houses or shopping malls and places like that, and just not to find remains. Because, what would they dig 8 feet under, if that,
Mm-hmm.
to not just randomly have someone go, oh yeah, I just found these human remains
Yeah, I mean, like, it does seem like someone would stumble into it, but
at some point. Like, what did you do with the body? I mean, they could have, I don't know, acid, trying to disintegrate it down, burn it down, whatnot. Like,
acid, you got the Great Lakes there, fire, there's a lot of ways. I mean, your inclination is perfectly natural, you know, like you would think that with development that something would be found. You know, you break ground on a building, you go, oh my God, what is this? But I need to at least state this for the international listeners, people that know of the US, maybe haven't been here. The US is enormous. It is absolutely enormous. I don't even know, compared to Europe, it is way bigger. What did I say in a previous episode? Like, Texas is the size of France, give or take. When we were talking about Ireland and Sugar the other week, it is huge. And a quick search here, I was very curious, what percentage of the country is undeveloped? 47 to 50% is kind of the way it is. And only about 20% of it might be populated. The 80 other percent is either sparsely populated or just kind of natural as it is. And so, like, you know, you could go bury a time capsule in the middle of Oklahoma, and even if you marked it, someone might not stumble into it for who knows how long. I mean,
they can go unseen for a very long time. That's a good point.
It's just wild. It's wild. And if somebody doesn't want to get found, you know, there's, like you said, there's so many ways to destroy evidence, and especially at this time. I mean, when you think about it, right, you know, we talk about these cases from mid-century where people are very trusting, and there's a lot of disappearances and a lot of serial killings and a lot of people that got away with it and a lot of them that are cold cases. And then when we were young, Fredo, like, stranger danger is all the word. You know, if you're out there playing, don't talk to anyone you don't know, don't get in any vans, don't accept things from people. But I was still able, you know, it was kind of in my age group. We're still able to run around, go outside, be unsupervised, just have your wits about you. And I'm not a parent, nor am I a child right now, maybe mentally. But right now, I feel like unless the parents are with the kids at a specific park or at a designated location, I would have to imagine kids aren't just running around, you know? I've heard stories of kids get reported to parents or whatever if they are seen alone. And so you see this evolution that's kind of reactive to this kind of idea that, like, yeah, there's good Samaritans, and then there's people that disguise themselves as good Samaritans and, who knows, have very sinister plots.
Yeah. I mean, it could even be someone that was a good Samaritan, just had sinister thoughts and then reacted on it right then and there.
Who knows? Right.
And that's the only thing they've ever done that's of that degree.
It's very possible. You know, we loop back to the beginning where we talk about these intrusive thoughts. This doesn't make anything okay. I got to spell that out. But, like,
right.
You know, I have seen CCTV footage of somebody getting pushed into a subway, and I go, that's horrifying. I see that yellow line on the ground, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that. All it takes is one fool to be like, I could do this.
Yep, just to react on it right then and there.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a lot of cases that are this alive or this, I should say, maybe active. But when we do, I do like to shout out the information channels. And as always, Task Force, you've been absolutely wonderful. But because we're putting this on the internet, I do want to give the disclaimer. Do not call these numbers and clog it up with just wild theories and guesswork. This is essentially for people who have actual information or have seen things or know things. So with that disclaimer, I want to say that if you have any information about the disappearances of either Pamela Hobley or Patricia Spencer, there are two numbers. Call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, THELOST, or the Escoda Police Department at 989-739-9113. But with that, we do come to a close on this case of disappearances. It is wild, again, to contextualize this in our recent history, like, this is a time period where my parents are growing up. It's so wild how much can change at a grand scheme, you know, like societal level, but also at a personal level when something like this, just one nefarious individual comes through and can just change lives. It's scary, it's terrifying. It's why we talk about cases like this, to better understand the world around us, but also, I don't know, there's something like that draws us to these dark cases, and it's to arm ourselves with understanding, with what would we do, with almost burden ourselves with the knowledge so as to hopefully avoid it moving forward.
I think it's like to peek into the worst parts of humanity safely. You know what I mean? The extremes of what could happen.
Right.
Without anything ever, happening to you, or just looking in from a safety of your couch. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, the whole timeline was just, wiped out. The lives that they could have lived, the ripple effect that would have had. I really don't think it was they ran away to be together, or it might have initially started like that, but I don't think it ended that way. Just because also, they're very young. The odds of them running away, they wanted to run away together, run away together, and still be together. You know what I mean? Divorce rates are very high.
Yeah. What is it nowadays?
It's 55%. Yeah. Divorce rates. And so it's just the fact that to be that young, and it does happen, but let's be honest, it's very, very rare that you're that young and you find that person, you want to be with that person forever. That just, that's your person and it worked out. And so to think that they didn't eventually separate, and then from there, maybe reach back out to family or whatever, to be okay, they were together, they avoided the high chance of a divorce rate. Then on top of that, if they did divorce or whatever, separate, then they decided to stay silent on their disappearances. There's just so many different factors, and just it's just so much harder to believe that. As opposed to, they met an unfortunate early end.
It's tough, dude. And, a lot of that speculation is only in hopes of making sense of it all, because...
Right, yeah, it's speculation.
When it's something so wild, so almost out of the blue, so unexpected, you kind of just want to make sense of it. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, they were close with their families. Hobley went through a divorce. Her household was broken up. And you see how she reacted with that. And Spencer herself had a close family tie there with her parents. And so when you start to speculate about running away together, you start to think it doesn't really click. And I don't know. Do we all want to believe that maybe they are somewhere happy and healthy? Absolutely. But I think that's just what happens with one of these cases. You just, without knowing, you can only speculate. But that is the disappearance of Patricia Spencer and Pamela Hobley. As we come to an end, I want to thank our task force members over at redwebpod.com, gobbling down on what we put out every single week. Thank you all so much for the support. A little tone shift there to pivot. But yeah, every single week we have something coming out, usually 2 things coming out at this point. Gameplays, behind the scenes podcast to get to know us, Christian, a little bit better. We've got Movie Club every other week if you want to explore horror movies with us. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. What do I say? From classic to crap?
Yeah, classic to crap. I'm in the mood for some more crap, baby. Let me tell you.
Yeah, well, we gotta get through Men in Black.
But they're always fun. We don't do crap this is hard to watch. We do crap
fun crap.
Yeah, this is fun.
Like Troll Hunter.
This is wild.
It was wild. We're doing Men in Black here in a little bit. And then after that, I forget whose turn it is. Maybe Fredo.
I think it's mine.
You can bring some fun crap back.
Some fun crap coming your way.
Yeah. But with that, some shout outs. Remus Dovey, thank you so much for being our newest Task Force Elite member. We got Noodle Nom. Thank you for being a buff scientist. Shout out for this week. And then, of course, our squonks for this week are Brett O'Meara, Zarathustra, Andy Schrock, and Azrael. Thank you all so much for the direct support. And Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.